Well, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Charlie Gipple, and I'm going to be your host for tonight. I know that when you think of just having a blast on a Tuesday night, you think, you know what? I want to listen to some bald, ugly, middle-aged dude talk about estate planning, long-term care, and Social Security. That is your idea of a great time, right? No, in all seriousness, this is probably not probably. These are the three topics that, when I present across the country, the most important topics that consumers find the most important topics here, and I've combined them all into one presentation today, and I'm absolutely thrilled to share about 20 minutes within each category with all of you fine folks that have taken your time to listen to this webinar. I promise you, you're going to have fun. You're going to find that your time is worth it. You know, I've been told that a good presentation has a good beginning, a good ending. And lastly, those two things are as close together as possible. And with an hour allotted for this presentation tonight, I think you would agree that estate planning, Social Security, and long-term care, which can easily go like 3 hours apiece, that an hour is indeed a very short presentation. Let's see who all we have on today. By the way, folks, can you hear me and can you see me okay? In the Q&A pane or in the chat pane, tell me if you can see me and hear me okay, so that I know that, well, you can see me and hear me. I've gone on and on and on, and 15 minutes into the presentation, people started messaging me saying, I can't hear what you're saying. So I've learned to do that right at the outset. Okay, so we have a good group. We had 85 register. I think we probably have about 3/4 of that on right now, which is usually the way that this goes. Hear you and see you. Florencio, very glad to see you. Dan, very glad to see you. My guy Kenny, we got my guy Paul out there. We got my guy Sal down in Florida. Who else? Mike, glad to have you. Robert out in the Illinois area. And Barry, yes, good to see you guys. Absolutely thrilled to have you on the call here. So here is what you're going to get out of this webinar. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to get right into it without further ado, because again, there's a lot of content here. But as I'm sharing my screen, I'll tell you this. So by the end of this webinar, you're going to have an idea. Number one, if you have not filed for Social Security, or even if you did, you're going to understand a little more about Social Security, because by making the wrong Social Security mistake, you could literally be leaving hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table. So you will know just enough about Social Security to alert you in your head the things to be aware of when it comes time to file for Social Security. And if nothing else, you should definitely speak with your advisor, the one that invited you to this call. And maybe that advisor is me, for my clients, friends, and family that are on. You can speak with your advisor to get your Social Security and retirement income plan. But number one, you're going to be more aware of Social Security than possibly what you are today. Number two is long-term care. The One of the three largest decisions that you're going to make in your life from a financial standpoint, long-term care. There's a 7 in 10 probability that each of us are going to have a long-term care event, right? What are the options that are out there? 20 years ago, a lot of these options didn't exist. 20 years ago, for the most part, it was just the traditional long-term care insurance that kind of works like health insurance. You're going to have your periphery, so to speak, broadened a little bit as I talk today about the three primary options that exist for funding, for financing long-term care. And then number three is estate planning. I could talk about estate planning all day long, get into irrevocable trusts, revocable trusts, as we will talk about today. Could get into charitable remainder trusts, all that fun stuff. But what I wanted to do on this webinar today is the low-hanging fruit. What is the very basic stuff that you should be concerned with when it comes to estate planning? Because folks, estate planning is not just for the rich, right? It's not for those that have an estate tax issue. Today, you do not have an estate tax issue unless you have assets over $13.6 million as an individual. As a couple, an estate of over $27 million, right? This presentation is not just for those folks, because estate planning is also about avoiding probate. First poll question for you fine folks. First poll question is this, and this is going to be a dialogue as we go here, not a monologue, but rather a dialogue. The first poll question is this: wills. So last will and testament. Do wills avoid probate? So if you have a will, do wills avoid that process of probate? Tell me what you think. Do wills avoid probate? Or maybe you say, what the hell is probate? And that's fine too. Just tell me over in the comments section there or the webinar chat, do wills avoid probate? And we're going to define probate here in a little bit. Do they avoid probate? We got a couple answers. Let's not be a sleepy group here tonight. It'll go a lot faster if we all participate. Looks like we have a smart group here. I haven't seen anybody put yes, that wills avoid probate. Wills do not avoid probate. We'll talk a little bit about that here in a bit. Martha, yes, thank you. Please define probate. That's exactly what we're going to do. Martha, you said it a little more diplomatically than I did. What the heck is probate? Martha asked me to define probate. Probate is a pain in the butt. And if you have assets of a decent size, doesn't take much, maybe a couple 100,000 or more, you want to avoid that process. So what assets, when you die, are subject to this court process that is probate, that will take lives or take days, take years off the lives rather of your beneficiaries, your heirs that inherit those assets. That's what I'm going to talk about. And how do you avoid this process? How do you avoid the expense of probate? That's the third part of our presentation today, which is the estate planning chunk. But before we go there, so this presentation is chronological order, right? We go through our working years, we save for retirement, we retire. Somewhere along the line, we have to file for Social Security. We have to file for Social Security. What are some thoughts that you should keep in mind when you file for Social Security? Because this is a very important asset. I write about it all the time, and I'll tell you a little bit about me, but in my publications and in my columns that I have where I write financial topics every single month, I write a lot about Social Security. This asset for most of you is going to be a $1 million plus income stream over your lifetime. For many of us, this is the largest asset, so to speak, in our portfolio. But yet making the wrong Social Security decision can be a difference between getting $900,000 over your lifetimes and $1.2 million over your lifetimes, for example, right? So Social Security, that's the first step that we take in our retirement journey, usually. The second step is Father Time is undefeated. Father Time is undefeated. I come from a pretty tough blue collar family. I used to think that I was really tough and indestructible in the weight room. Oh, I can lift all this. I'm now 46, and I tell you, the shoulders, the knees, all that stuff. Now, am I going to a nursing home anytime soon? No, not at age 46, but I will tell you, Father Time is undefeated, and therefore there's a 7 in 10 probability that a long-term care event will happen, whether it's you're taken care of in your own home. And what is long-term care? We'll define it more, but it is effectively needing somebody else to take care of you, right? And ideally, you will have funds readily available so that you don't have to have your spouse, your siblings, your nephews, your nieces, your grandkids, your daughters, your sons take care of you unpaid. Hopefully, you have funds available so that you can pay somebody else to do the stuff that frankly takes years off the lives of those caregivers as well. Caregiver statistics, those that take care of folks with long-term care, it's just as daunting as the long-term care statistics. Who has experienced or witnessed a long-term care event? Just comment, who has experienced or witnessed a long-term care event? And what was it like? I'll tell you, in financial services, and I've been doing this for 25 years, the most heartbreaking stories don't necessarily have to do with premature death, don't have to do with, I mean, what else is there that's worse than death? Well, I'll answer that. Many times it has more to do with being halfway dead, but needing people to take care of you, right? Or needing to take care of somebody financially, emotionally, it's absolutely devastating. So number two, you're going to be able to understand the long-term care options that are out there. And then number three, again, basics about how do you make your beneficiaries, or your heirs, I should say, of your estate, those people that are going to inherit your assets, how do you make their lives a little easier, as well as retain those hard-earned assets that you built up that should go to the next generation versus the judges, versus the attorneys, the probate process, right? Yes, long-term care, Robert. Yeah, long-term care, I would imagine. What do we have here? Dan. Dan said, just moved mom from assisted living to memory care. It sucks. And Dan, what is it? Is it 120 grand a year? I don't know what part of the country you're in, but I'll bet it's around 120 grand a year. We'll get into averages here. And the memory thing, here's what's happening with the memory thing, dementia. Our bodies are outliving, one, our ability to work, but number two, in many cases, our bodies are outliving our brains. And what's happening is, I was an executive over at Genworth, one of the largest long-term care insurance companies in the world at the time, the juggernaut at the time, the largest at the time, actually. And they will tell you that their claims were just getting blown up, huge claims for long periods of time. Why is that? Because of this thing called dementia. Consumers, seniors, our loved ones in the nursing home for 9 years, 8 years, 10 years. And Dan just came back. It's $108,000 per year for that memory care unit. So 8 years, 9 years, 10 years, we are talking $1 million in expenditures there. I don't know about you, but if I have $1 million that I've worked hard for, I don't want all that to disappear, then to have to go on Medicaid. And then my heirs, my beneficiaries, my estate, my kids, they get zero. I don't want that to happen. And that's long-term care. And of course, the third thing, like I said, estate planning. We'll talk about revocable trusts. We'll talk about wills. We'll talk about pour-over wills. Maybe you have properties in different states. There's something called ancillary probate. What does that mean? How can you avoid all this? So here's the agenda. Number one, about me. Heck, let's just scratch this one right off the menu right now. A little bit about me. Let's get rid of this thing right now. All right. So I've been doing this for 25 years. Been married to my wife for about 25 years. So straight out of college, we got married. I've been doing this the whole time. I spent most of my career in the corporate world. So I was an executive of various insurance companies, traveled the country since I was like in my mid-20s. So I was pretty fortunate. I had some bosses that really entrusted in me. Did a lot of stuff like on Wall Street with some of the media interviews, got a lot of great exposure given wonderful folks like yourself, as well as financial professionals, talks like this, as well as estate planning, tax planning, retirement planning in general, investment planning. So basically the whole comprehensive menu of things. To where to this day, I still write for a lot of magazines. And what the heck do I have to do with that wonderful financial professional that invited you to this call? And again, for my clients, friends, and family, that's me that invited you to this call. But for many of you, it's your financial professional that invited you to this call. Well, my organization is CG Financial Group, and I not only have my own clients, but I also work with some of the country's top financial professionals too, further their clients' education in topics like what we're going to talk about today. So I'm kind of a partner to your financial professional. And that is what I have to do with your financial professional. I'm a certified financial planner, so I'm a fiduciary, right? This whole argument about fiduciary versus non-fiduciary. I'm a certified financial planner. I'm an investment advisor. And I also have a couple of additional designations, chartered life underwriter, which has to do a lot with estate planning and life insurance. And also I'm a chartered financial consultant, which has to do with more of the investment side of things. Pretty well-rounded there. And my job is to educate you, as well as to help your financial professional educate you, right? All right, so number two, Social Security. Here's what we're going to talk about. No more about me. That's it. But Social Security, it is estimated that between $5 and $10 billion a year is wasted by consumers filing for Social Security in the wrong manner. Yes, that's a wide span, 5 to 10 billion. Let's just say 5 billion. $5 billion a year is wasted, is people leaving money on the table because they file for Social Security incorrectly. Social Security, there is so much more to it than just Social Security. And I'll talk about what I mean by that here in a little bit. Long-term care. What is long-term care and how do we pay for it? There are really only 3 different ways to pay for long-term care. Only 3 different ways to pay for long-term care. And we're going to talk about the third one here. The first way to pay for long-term care is out of your pocket, right? Kind of sucks. $108,000 per year. That's what, $11,000 per month, roughly $11,000 per month. That's out of pocket. My mom was a nursing home administrator for 30 years. And I asked her one day, I said, what percentage of your residents in your nursing home are on Medicaid? And she said 50%. And what is Medicaid? That means that your assets have been spun down to almost nothing. In the state of Iowa, it's $2,000 in assets. At that point in time, people, they need to go on Medicaid so that the government can pick up their long-term care. I said, what percentage of your consumers are on Medicaid? She said 50%. I said, no kidding. And this is kind of a rich northern Iowa farm town. I said, really? In that town that you're in, 50%? I said, when they come into the doors of the nursing home, what percentage of them immediately are on Medicaid? Or how many of them had to spend all their assets down to go on Medicaid? She goes, oh, all of them had assets almost when they came into the door. It's just that it didn't take long at $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 a pop to need to go on Medicaid. So anyway, out of pocket, the second thing is Medicaid, right? Once you've spun down everything, it's Medicaid. And that is 52% of people throughout the country are indeed on Medicaid. That's one of the statistics that I saw, around 52%. And then number three, that is long-term care insurance. There are options that did not exist just 20 years ago, because there are biases against some of the old long-term care stuff. Premium hikes. Oh, I heard from a friend that the premium had to go up. Well, yeah, that's because everybody's living longer, dementia, and a lot of people are using their long-term care insurance policies. But all that aside, there are options that have guaranteed benefits, guaranteed premiums, and also have death benefits should you pass away without needing care, right? So a lot of people are like, but if I don't use it, I lose it. Why would I pay all that for long-term care? If I don't use it, I lose it. Not with some of the options that we have today. So we're going to talk more about that. We're going to talk about probate. What is probate? Who is that asked me earlier? What is probate? We're going to define probate, Martha, and the three most important estate planning documents. And folks, you can fill out please, all those that are on, fill out the evaluation at the end. Also in that evaluation is a question that I ask you. That financial professional that invited you to this webinar, your financial professional, which I only deal with the best financial professionals in the country. So if you're working with somebody that invited you here, chances are you have a great financial professional. With everything that I said today, I asked the question, would you like to meet with your financial professional to discuss any of the topics that I discussed here today? So that's in the evaluation at the end. So let's get into Social Security. Here's what this disclosure basically says. And I'm going to start the conversation with this, the Social Security conversation with this. It's so specific to each and every one of you, right? Social Security is about so much more than just Social Security. For instance, let's say that we have two different people here, and those people are twins. And folks, ask questions as we go here. Again, more of a dialogue rather than a monologue. Let's say that those two twins, they were obviously born on the same day, which means that their full retirement age for Social Security is the same date. They've made the exact same amount of money over their lifetimes, which means that Social Security is going to pay each of them the same amount if each of them files at the same time, right? But did you know that when it comes to finding the optimal Social Security filing strategy, that this twin here could have a completely different optimal filing time than this twin over here? Well, how's that possible, Charlie? They both have the same genetics. They both have the same Social Security amount. How is that possible? Because Social Security is about so much more than just Social Security. And I don't care how big your Social Security check is. I care about how big your net Social Security check is, as in after taxes, right? Tell me, folks, what percentage of Social Security can be taxed on the high end? What is the maximum amount of your Social Security benefit that can be taxed? And a lot of folks on the call today, we have several dozen folks on the call today, are probably thinking, I didn't know it can be taxed. Oh, yeah. Yes, the government does nail you on the back end as well if you make, frankly, not a ton of money. So what percentage of your Social Security can potentially be taxed? That's correct. Up to 85% of your Social Security can be taxed. So for the folks that are already on Social Security, this is a topic for you as well. Social Security is not just for those that haven't filed yet, right? It's also those that have filed, because that Social Security tax can possibly stick with you for the rest of your life. A 90-year-old on Social Security could still find that their Social Security is, 85% of that is taxed. So my point with these twins is it's also about the other income that they have. So let's say that this guy has a bunch of pre-tax retirement income coming in at the same time he has Social Security coming in. Is he going to be taxed on Social Security? Probably. Can we adjust that taxation effectively by the timing of when he takes Social Security? Yeah, we absolutely can. How do we know? How do we do this? That comes down to the software that your financial professional has. So when it comes to planning for Social Security, we all have the software. So just know that if I'm sounding confused, well, I don't know what to do. You will if you're concerned about this and you talk with your financial professional. And maybe this one over here doesn't have any pre-tax retirement income coming in. Maybe it's all Roth IRA income coming in, which doesn't impact his Social Security taxation. When each of these two should file can be two completely different points in time. And here's the second thing as we get into the first slide here. Here's the second thing. It's this. And I'm not moving the slide or anything. I'll just throw this scenario out. Me and my wife, right? So like I said, traveled the country since I was in my mid-20s, heck, traveled the world since I was in my mid-20s, doing this, having fun doing this, and making a decent income. What did my wife do? What did my wife do? She was a stay-at-home mom, right? So she stayed at home with the kids, and who had the toughest job? She had the tougher job of the two of us. I had a blast traveling the country. She was raising the kids. But what does that do to her Social Security? It means that her Social Security is going to be very, very, very little. And I'll get to spousal benefits here in a bit. So with that being said, and I'll make this statement and look for your advice. So I'm coming to you for advice. I say, when should I file for Social Security? And this requires an answer from you. You tell me when I should file for Social Security. My dad died at age 62. His dad, I think, died 67, 68, 69. My uncles, at least on that side of the family, early 70s, they died. So those are my genetics, right? Now I take good care of myself, and I'll probably be different. But having said that, when should I take my Social Security? The earliest possible, which is age 62, or at age 67, my full retirement age, or age 70. So you tell me what everybody says. When should Charlie file for his Social Security benefit? I'm asking you. Tell me when I should file. Nobody knows this. When should Charlie file for Social Security? Early, on time, or late? Florencio, full retirement age. That's pretty good. That's close. 62. Everybody else says 62. 62. Dang, Charlie, with those genetics, you better not even buy bananas that aren't ripe yet. You're not going to be around to see those, but to eat those bananas, right? No, I take care of myself. I'll probably live a long age. But with those genetics, people tend to say, well, you need to take it early. You need to take it at age 62. You need to take it at 60, because if you're going to die, which I'm not, if you're going to die like in your 60s, it's good to have some benefit. Well, the second point here, my first point was Social Security is about so much more than just Social Security. It's the other income that you have coming in, which impacts the taxes. My second point here is it's not just about Charlie. Charlie's Social Security is not just about Charlie. It's also about his wife that's going to live forever. What's my point there? So she's got great genetics. So let's say that my benefit is $3,000 and Noelle, my wife's benefit is $900, let's say. Well, by the way, the Social Security Administration says that, hey, she should be entitled to at least 50% of Charlie's, right? That's called a spousal benefit. That your spouse gets at least her benefit or his benefit or half of yours, whatever is greater. That's the spousal benefit. Okay, so that's what she gets. But question for you, what happens if I file early and I pass away? What does my wife inherit? My wife inherits an amount that is much smaller than what it otherwise would have been if I waited until age 70, as we're going to talk about here in a bit. So, in other words, it's not just about Charlie's lifespan, it's also about Noelle's lifespan, because she's going to inherit my benefit. She's either going to inherit my stupidity because I filed early, right? And I say that in my case. I'm not saying people that file early are stupid. I'm just saying in my case it would be. Or she inherits my large benefit because I waited until age 70. So in other words, people that say, well, Charlie, since you're not going to live long, you should file here. No, it's about so much more than just me, right? So let's get into the details kind of what I just explained there, with that being the level set here. So your full retirement age is where everything starts. So my full retirement age over here on the right is age 67. Why? Because I was born in 1977. If you were born in 1955, your full retirement age is 66 and 2 months. And that is where all the calculations start. So you have seen on your statement over all these years, big bold print, age 67 or 66 and 4 months. That is your full retirement age. And at full retirement age is when you get 100% of your primary insurance amount. You got to love the government vernacular, right? Primary insurance amount. In other words, your full Social Security benefit, boom, for me, it's age 67. If I file early, there are adjustments down from there. If I file late, there are adjustments up from there. What are those adjustments? Let's take an example here and say we have somebody born in 1956, right? 1956. That person's full retirement age is 66 and 4 months. Do we have anybody that is born in 1956, where we hit the example right on the head? Anybody born in 1956? Your full retirement age is 66 and 4 months. So what does it mean if he files early, or she? Let's say she in this example. I want to be unisex here, right? She files early. What is the penalty? So at 66 and 4 months, what would it mean if she filed at 66 and 4 months? Well, what has been on her benefit statement all these years that says, let's say $1,000 per month. Well, if she waits until 66 and 4 months, then she's going to get 100% of her $1,000. So $1,000 is what she gets, and that's what it is forever, outside of cost of living adjustments, right? So you're locked into that benefit, yes, with cost of living adjustments because of inflation. That's what you're locked into forever. So this is a pretty irrevocable decision. Granted, there are kind of ways where you can pay the government back and undo it, but I'm not going to go into that here. What if she files, say, 5 years early? Not quite 5 years, because her full retirement age is 66 and 4 months, less than 5 years. But you can see there that she would only get not $1,000 per month, but $733 per month. $733 per month, right? Here is the penalty. To simplify it, here is the penalty for taking Social Security early. To simplify it, it's around 6% per year that you take Social Security early. So if I get $1,000 a month at my age 67, if I file at age 66, it's going to be around, what is that, 6% per year? $940. That would be my Social Security benefit. And again, that goes on forever. But because she filed almost 5 years early, it's $733. But question for you, what if she waits? What if she goes the other way? What is the percentage for every year that you delay? Every year that you delay, how much higher does your Social Security benefit get? How much higher does it get for every year? A lot of people know this. Some don't. It's one percentage that's probably the simplest thing when it comes to Social Security, this part here. Yeah, that's right. It's 8%. 8%. So, and this math is a little funky because we have those 4 months thrown in there. But if I had my full retirement age at 67 and I get 100% at 67, then at 68, it would be 108%. At 69, 116%. At 70, it'd be 124%. So you are rewarded 8% per year for every year that you delay past Social Security. And technically, it's monthly that you get those additional bump ups, obviously in smaller percentages than 8%. But yeah, so here is the calculus. Here's the calculus. And here is the oversimplification, frankly. So your decision for Social Security is, do I take Social Security early and get less of a benefit for a longer period of time, right? Or do I take Social Security late and get a larger benefit for a shorter period of time, an 8-year shorter period of time, to be exact? So here is oversimplification. People look at it. Sometimes if you're good with a spreadsheet, they'll say, well, my total benefits if I live to this age by filing at 70 is this. By filing at 62, it's this. And because I have great genetics, I believe if you have great genetics, you're probably inclined to say, I should file for Social Security late. Why? Because, you have that bigger benefit. And if it's going to pay you forever because you have good genetics, like my wife, right? You might want to file late. But doing that kind of crossover analysis, it's oversimplified. It's greatly oversimplified because it doesn't take into consideration, many times it doesn't take into consideration inflation. Those analyses, so to speak, don't take into consideration taxes, right? Which can be adjusted based off timing. So again, I don't care about your gross Social Security. I care about your net Social Security. Well, Charlie, how do I know which one is best for me? That's where you meet with your financial professional. If you're one of my clients, family, friends, you meet with me. We plug your stuff into the system. And what the system does, it says, okay, based off our projection of your lifetime, based off all of your inflow during your Social Security years, here's option A. And it's that you're going to get like $1 million over your lifetime based off of this net of taxation. But here's option B. If you do this, maybe delay, or maybe take it early, or maybe the husband delays and the wife takes it early, right? It's not always the same with spouses. But based off this, over your lifetimes, you get 1.3 million bucks. Well, I don't know about you, but more money is better than less money, in my opinion. So you would go with option B. But that's how you figure it out, is you work with your financial professional and they have the sophisticated software. They work with me on this sophisticated software and we get you a beautiful report. So again, in the evaluation, you can indicate if you want your retirement income plan. And here's a Social Security statement. I want to make a point on this. So over on the left here, here is kind of what my Social Security statement would look like. 67 on the left. That is your full retirement age, Charlie. Over there on the right, Wanda Worker here, this example, her primary insurance amount is $1,500. Now, here's a question. I want to make an important point around this question. Where do those numbers come from? Where does that $1,500 come from? Does the Social Security Administration just pick it out of the air and say, Wanda Worker, $1,500 a month? No, it is based off of, over there to the right, it is based off of 35 years of your earnings, right? 35 years of your earnings. Question for you. Now, this is a question. Usually the group is about 50-50 on this one. When it comes to calculating your Social Security and kind of averaging out those 35 years of earnings, is it the last 35 years of earnings or is it the best 35 years of earnings? Which is it? Is it the last 35 years of earnings or is it the best 35 years of earnings? Which one is it? And then I want to make a point around this that comes up a lot. Not the last. Nope. Donna. Yep. My guy, Matt. What's going on, brother? How you doing? It's the best 35 years of earnings. So this kind of cool. So they cherry pick the best 35 years of earnings. If you have zero earnings in the 34th and 35th year, It's in the calculation. You kind of average it out, although that's simplified. And boom, that's how you get your 1,500. Why do I bring this up? I bring this up because this comes up. Charlie, I want to continue to work while I'm on Social Security. Or, hey, I want to go back to work because I'm bored. I can't sit and just stare at the wall. I can only read so many freaking books during retirement. I want to go back to work. But question, if I only make, say, 10 grand because it's part-time, it's a low-paying job, is that going to hurt my Social Security benefits? What's my answer to that question? Right. The answer is no. It can only help you. From a growth standpoint, from a total Social Security standpoint, it can only help you because if that year is not one of the best 35 years, it's just not included in the calculation. But can it hurt you from a tax standpoint? It can, yes. But in short, you are not hurting yourself by continuing to work while on Social Security. Now, if you file early prior to your full retirement age, that's a whole different can of worms. If you are thinking of filing prior to your full retirement age, well, we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. It's a different can of worms. It takes very little income to kind of harm you if you file early. Anyway, and once you're on that, say $1,500 a month, like Wanda Worker was, it doesn't stay that way forever. You get a cost of living adjustment, right? Because heck, $1,500 today is different than $1,500 30 years from now. The government realizes that, and as a result, cost of living adjustment. So you get a little bump. And here's a point that I want to make on this. Then we're going to get on to long-term care and estate planning. The point that I want to make on this is look at 2023. An 8.7% increase, an 8.7% increase. So in late 2022, in October, the government comes out, as they do every October, and says, hey, in the next year, here is a cost of living adjustment. It's 8.7%. Now, folks, if you had not filed in the year 2022 at this point in time, it's late October, November, what did a couple of my clients do? They called me up and what did they say? They haven't filed yet, but they had read in the news, they heard on the news, read in the news, whatever, heard on the radio that it's going to be 8.7%. What was their question to me? The question was, Charlie, do I need to file? This looks juicy. This looks juicy. Do I need to file in order to get this 8.7% bump up in my benefits? And what was my answer? No, you don't. You don't need to file to get that cost of living adjustment. So my answer was exactly, you can file if you want, but don't do it because of that. Because as long as this year, at the time, as long as in that year, you were age 62 or older, that cost of living adjustment will automatically be reflected in the ultimate Social Security benefit that you get, whether you have filed yet or not, as long as you were 62 and older in that given year. I bring that up because if we have another big number in 2025, 2026, which the next year it's not going to be that big. It's tracking at like only 3%. But just remember that if we get a big number, man, do I need to file? No, you don't. It has nothing to do with if you file or not, as long as you're 62 or older. Spousal benefits, I already talked about that. You are entitled to at least 50% of what your spouse gets, or your spouse is entitled to at least 50% of what you get, whoever is the greater, whoever is the lesser. That also applies to ex-spousal benefits, by the way, as long as you were married for at least a 10-year period of time. And here's the earned income test. Not going to spend a lot of time into this because I want to get into long-term care and estate planning. If you make over $22,000 in a year and you have filed for Social Security early, this only applies to prior to your full retirement age. Let me give you an example. It's easy to crystallize things better with examples. I had a client come to me and say, hey, she wasn't a client at the time, but she is now. She said, hey, I want to file for Social Security this year. I said, okay, so how old are you? She goes, 62. I said, okay, so that's early. I said, but don't you still work? She goes, yeah. I said, okay, how much money do you make? She goes, $60,000. So here is what I told her. I said, let's just call her Betty. I said, Betty, roughly $20,000, right? Technically, it was 21,000, whatever at the time. But if you make over $20,000 in the year, this year and you have filed for Social Security early, here's what the Social Security Administration does. For every $2 above that $20,000 that you make, they will withhold $1. So what does that mean? It means you make $60,000, which is $40,000 above $20,000. What will the Social Security Administration withhold from your Social Security payments? Half of $40,000 is $20,000. I said, now, what does that Social Security statement say that you're going to get in Social Security payments if you file this year? She said around $20,000. That is the perfect negative scenario, right? I said, why would you file then? You're literally going to get zero because they're going to withhold it. Now, once she turns full retirement age, that benefit bumps up and she gets that withholding back over her lifetime. But my point there is, for you folks that are still that are maybe still working, have some good income coming in, and this is earned income. This is not unearned income like IRA, pre-tax distributions. This is earned income, wages, tips, etc. If you make over $22,000, just know that they are going to withhold 50% of every dollar above that you make, and that only applies to prior to full retirement age. Once you turn full retirement age, it bumps up. Taxes, Social Security taxes. In short, if you make more than $44,000 as a couple down here at the bottom, as much as 85% of your Social Security can be taxed. That's my point at the beginning with those two twins. I remember about 10 years ago. Yeah, 10 years ago, my oldest one was 7. And it's kind of a tradition that we grill every weekend. We're a family of carnivores, right? Brisket, steak. There's no meat that I don't like, but my kids love steak, so I'll go to Costco and get their ribeye, the best ribeye on earth, in my opinion. Unless you're one of those farmers where it's like fresh off the cow, then let's talk. You're my new best friend if that's the case. But get Costco ribeye, and I look over, and my 7-year-old at the time is eating ribeye with chocolate milk. Ribeye and chocolate milk. I'm like, good Lord. Not only that, he dipped his ribeye in the chocolate milk and thought it was just absolutely fabulous. When I eat, I tend to coordinate what my sides are. I'm not artsy fartsy. I don't need wine coordination and all that. But chocolate milk and steak, that's not coordination, right? My point to that is, as many people, they just file for Social Security, then they blindly take income from these various accounts without coordination taking place, without considering, well, this is going to impact my Social Security taxation and thus my net Social Security, right? Coordination needs to happen with Social Security. It's more complicated, and that's where you need your financial professional to come in and help you with that. Well, hey, I want to file for Social Security here, and I want to take this income. How should I do this? That's where your financial professional should come into play, but it can save you hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. And that income that drives up your Social Security, it's basically all of your gross income, plus they add in 50% of your Social Security amount. And if that provisional income equals more than $44,000 as a couple, $34,000 as a single, then you can bet that around 85% of your Social Security is going to be taxed. We want to avoid that as much as we can. Granted, if you have a huge amount of Social Security, a huge amount of wealth coming in from pre-tax assets, it can be hard, but there are always ways to optimize Social Security. The retirement income plan at the end here in the evaluation, then we have 15 minutes here of estate planning as well as long-term care. This is a retirement income plan I did for one of my clients. Client came to me and said, or wasn't a client at the time, but she said, here's my Social Security statement. Here's my portfolio. We have $500,000 or so in assets. We want to retire this year. So Charlie, can you tell us what our number is? Meaning, how much can we take in retirement income? A lot of people don't know their number. Well, I'm worth $5 million. What does that mean? Can I take out $1 million a year? Can I take out $500,000 a year, $100,000 a year in order to last for the next 30 years in retirement? What is the answer to that? We answered that for her. What is her number? Well, ma'am, in your first year, that can be adjusted for inflation thereafter, on an after-tax basis, your number is $39,000 right now. But I would not be doing my job if I just gave you your number and walked away. What if we optimized your Social Security and I suggested a different time for you to file your Social Security? What did we do here? Oh, we added an annuity, guaranteed lifetime income that is at a higher level than what she would have been able to take from her portfolio over a 30-year period of time. We added a couple things and boom, we were able to increase her number by about 33% or around 700,000 projected over her lifetime. Folks, that is that retirement income plan that I'm referring to there. All right, any questions so far? Are y'all getting something out of this before we get into long-term care and estate planning? And we might go 5 minutes past if that's okay. But yes, are you folks getting anything out of this so far? Cool. Jim, I appreciate that. Thank you much. Excellent, excellent. It looks like you are. Is anybody not getting anything out of it so far? Does anybody think this sucks? No, I'm kidding. All right, so what is long-term care? I'm not much of a slide reader here, but I do think that Genworth, again, one of the juggernauts in the long-term care space, does a great job with the definition. Long-term care is the care that you may need if you are unable to perform activities of daily living, ADLs, activities of daily living. That means things like eating, bathing, dressing, transferring, and using the bathroom. Folks, I want to pause for a second. Activities of daily living is very important. When you look at all the insurance products out there, what is it that triggers the insurance payout? You don't just write the company and say, I want some money. No, there has to be a trigger. Like with health insurance, you have to get sick or something. The doctor has to sign off on it, right? Or there has to be care provided from a doctor. Activities of daily living, the trigger is almost always that you cannot do 2 of these 6 activities of daily living. Who was the gentleman earlier that said his mom went to memory care? So here is Dan. So here are the triggers usually, here are the triggers usually with long-term care, that you cannot do 2 of 6 activities of daily living for a 90-day period of time, right? So you cannot do 2 of those 6, eating, bathing, dressing, transferring, using the bathroom. Continence is another one, being able to hold your bladder, your bowels. You cannot do 2 of those 6, or severe cognitive impairment. And that second, Dan, is probably what, if there is a long-term care policy in place, probably what triggers the benefits, right? So activities of daily living is important. But the goal of long-term care is to help you maintain your lifestyle as you age. Medicare supplement, and health insurance that you have at work usually will not pay for long-term care. Unbeknownst to almost half of the population, Medicare does not cover long-term care. Remember 3 different ways? Medicare was not a part of this. Medicare will cover like the first 20 days, but there has to be certain things that have taken place, a hospital stay for at least 3 days, and then immediately moving to a skilled nursing facility. But for the most part, Medicare doesn't cover anything. Out of pocket is how you finance long-term care, or Medicaid, which is the suboptimal approach, or somebody else, such as an insurance company. Those are the 3 ways that you can finance long-term care. And we're going to talk about 3 long-term care insurance options here in a bit. 7 in 10 probability, but check this out. It's not just about you. It's not just about me. My dad, concrete construction guy, ditch digger, the toughest guy I've ever known. Big giant hands, concrete, big old forearms. He dug ditches for 50 years since he was probably 12. Yeah. If you asked him, how do you plan to take care of your, we all get old, you're going to get weak, you're going to get feeble. The 250-pound guy, who's going to take care of you? His answers would have been something like, I'm going to die with my boots on, something like that. Or are you kidding me? I ain't ever going to get weak. For men, big macho men, it's kind of hard to fathom here, right? But it does. And it's not just about them. Look at these caregivers. 63% have used their own retirement savings funds to pay for the care of that loved one. We are not I wrote a big article about this. Humans are civilized animals, right? We are not coyotes. If you can no longer take care of yourself, sorry, the environment takes care of you for you. As civilized people, people feel an obligation, as we should, to take care of our loved ones. So it's not about my dad. It's about the people that would have had to have taken care of him by not listening to us about, hey, you need some sort of long-term care insurance. 100% of the families are impacted. So 110,000 is what Dan said. If you go down to the private room here at the bottom, $9,700, $9,700 a month for a private room in a nursing care facility. Now, it's not lost on me. I deal with clients every week that are like, but I don't want to be in a nursing home. Absolutely right. Well, what about in-home care, in your own home where somebody comes and takes care of you? Homemaker health aid, still pretty darn expensive. That's what, $75,000, $72,000 per year. And by the way, in all of these long-term care options, they will pay for you to have somebody take care of you in your home. I remember back in the old days, it was nursing home insurance. Oh, Charlie, you're going to talk with me about that nursing home insurance? It's stay out of the nursing home insurance. If you can afford to have some, if you have a policy that pays for people to take care of you in your house, which is where 76% of long-term care claims start, obviously people want to be taken care of in your house. Then yeah, then that's where you're going to be taken care of if you can afford it. If you can't afford that $72,000, many times it's Medicaid, and many times that means the nursing home, right? So you have choices when you can afford it, but in all cases, it's expensive. So here is the simplified in one chart. Here is the world of long-term care insurance. You have the traditional stuff on the left-hand side, which is where you pay a monthly or an annual premium. It's like health insurance, right? And if you need care, then there will be a trigger. And those triggers I talked about, you cannot do 2 activities of daily living for 90 days or severe cognitive impairment. And what happens is there's a benefit on your policy, say $8,000 a month benefit. Or if you said, you know what, I want it slimmed down. I'll have Social Security coming in. I only want $5,000 a month. And then I'll just pay the rest out of pocket and my assets won't disappear by doing that. You set the benefit up front and the number of months that it goes for, 48 months. There are products out there that will go for lifetime, believe it or not. And I'll get into that here in a bit. 80% of the world today, the long-term care insurance world today, is on the right-hand side. And it's combination hybrid products, it's called. A life insurance policy. Once upon a time, a company said, and I guess I don't know who this company is, but once upon a time, a company said, you know what? Life insurance is beautiful. You put in this amount of premium over the years, but if you pass away prematurely, this chunk of death benefit goes tax-free to the beneficiary. But you know what? Dying kind of sucks. The fact that nobody gets a benefit unless somebody dies, that kind of sucks. So what if that death benefit, what if instead if somebody needed long-term care, cannot do 2 activities of daily living, severely cognitively impaired, what if that triggers the death benefit to be paid out to that person that is in the nursing home or needs in-home care? That's a combination life policy. A combination annuity policy might look like this. $100,000 going in, so talking bigger chunks, not annual premiums. But let's say you have a big chunk of money. What if I put this into a long-term care annuity? Your $100,000 turns into $300,000 for purposes of long-term care. It's not like it grows to 300,000. You can take it out for no reason. No, your long-term care benefit, total benefit, is now $300,000. You put in 100, it tripled. That is the combination world. That is these 2 bottom boxes on the right. And that is where 80% of the industry is today. So let me show you an example here. So here's a male, age 60. He needs $5,000 a month benefit. It's not much, but he says, hey, I have other source of income coming in. I'll be able to afford the nursing home or the in-home care with my income on top of a $5,000 a month benefit. What is that benefit trigger, as we talked about? Like I said, the 2 things, 2 activities of daily living of those 6, right? bathing, toileting, dressing, eating, you get it, or severe cognitive impairment. So that's the trigger on this policy. And this is Mutual of Omaha, folks, one of the kings of the long-term care space. Mutual of Omaha, 2 hours west of me here. The premium on this is $3,100 per year for our 60-year-old male. What is that premium buying though? That's kind of expensive, Charlie. And by the way, if you're a 70-year-old, you can bet it's going to be more expensive. But in either case, when you compare that premium to the total benefit, so let's get into the total benefit. Benefit period on this, I ran it at 48 months. The average nursing home stay and this is nursing home stay, right? Not in-home care. So this is conservative. Well, did they have care taken care of in the home, then the nursing home? Industry-wide statistics, I think, are conservative, but here are the averages. A male spends 2 years on care, right? A female, 48 months on care. The average between the two of them, 3 years on care. I would argue those are conservative. Why? Because of things like dementia and all that stuff. 48 months, you multiply that times $5,000 a month, you have a long-term care total benefit of $240,000. Compared to $3,000 per year premium, I would say that that's pretty good, especially considering that the likelihood that this policy will be accessed is pretty darn high. It's pretty, unfortunately, it's likely that we will be using our long-term care policies. But that 240 is not all that there is to it, as in, and let me know if you have questions as we go through this, folks, because this is important stuff here. We also said, you know what, $5,000 a month, though, that needs to increase because $5,000 a month 20 years from now is not the same as $5,000 a month today. So we added an inflation rider to it. And what that means is the total long-term care benefit, as well as the monthly $5,000 benefit, grows over time. And the benefit settings, as we talked about, where do they pay? Do you have to be just in the nursing home? This is not nursing home insurance. It's also assisted living insurance. It's also in-home care insurance there. But here's the problem that comes up a lot is, and these are great policies, per dollar of premium you put in, you're getting a ton of value. You're getting a large benefit. So this is a great policy. It's just a matter of what you want, right? But what if I die and I never went to the nursing home? I never needed in-home care. The death benefit's zero, right? So that is where we transition to the next one. Okay, what if we have, kind of switching it up, let's do a joint policy. We have a male and a female, the more common, right? You have spouses. They want $5,000 per month. And they said, you know what? I don't like the use it or lose it thing. I don't like the fact that those premiums that you just laid out, Charlie, can increase, which they can with traditional long-term care. Let's talk about these combination life insurance policies. Okay, so here you have a couple and we're going to give them each $5,000 a month. What is the long-term care benefit trigger? The same. Broken record, the same. What is the premium? It's more expensive because the likelihood of one person accessing the policy of a couple is greater than just one person separated out. So naturally, the premium's going to get bigger, as well as, remember, there are death benefits on this product. If you just die, never use it, there are death benefits here. What's the benefit period? This product, you know, it's kind of an odd benefit period, but I chose almost 6 years, right? You multiply 66 months times 5,000, that's a $333,000 benefit pool, a lot bigger than the premium that you're paying per year, which is good. That's called leverage. That's good. All right, inflation for benefits. I simplified it here. I said, let's not put an inflation rider on here. But what are the benefit settings? The same. So this is the combination life insurance product, that second box in the middle there, right? But what's the death benefit? Well, that's so great, Charlie. So we spend $6,000 a year. If both of us die without needing a benefit, does anybody get anything? Yeah, it's $166,000. So here is what this life insurance company did. This one is One America. Again, one of the kings of the hill when it comes to these combination products. Here's what this company did is they said, for $6,000 per year, you will be able to access your death benefit, $166,000, right? For long-term care. Or if you die, that goes to a beneficiary. But by the way, if you're on care for so long that death benefit of $166,000 is gone, Guess what? You have what's called a continuation of benefits. And that is another $166,000. Double what the death benefit is what your long-term care benefit will be. That's what this policy does. Premiums are guaranteed. Death benefit is guaranteed. Long-term care pool is guaranteed. You can get inflation with it if you want. I just wanted to keep this graph somewhat simple here. And that is the combination life product. This one is fun. This one, people with chunks of money, $100,000, $200,000, that just want to pay for long-term care and be done with it. Listen up if that's you. Here's a portfolio that our hypothetical client has, right? Maybe this is many of you: stocks, bonds, CDs, fixed annuities, and here maybe some random dollar amounts in there. Over $1 million portfolio here, a nice portfolio, but that CD and that fixed annuity, let's say, that's lazy money. It's not really earning a whole lot there. It's lazy assets, right? Well, what if you move that $200,000 into one of these combination annuity / long-term care policies? What if you move just that $200,000 over? Here's what happens is your $200,000 on one particular solution out there, one particular product out there, you're probably going to get a bigger interest rate because it's an annuity. It's going to grow tax deferred, right? And if you, well, I won't go there, but it's going to grow tax deferred by 5%. There's a small long-term care fee, but it's going to grow. Wow. So just moving it there already, Charlie, you're able to get me a higher interest rate, probably, than where it is today, although CD rates are higher than where they were. But Charlie, what if I want to cash it out eventually? Well, you can do that. You can do that. Just know that it's an annuity, so there is a surrender term. This one is a 9-year annuity, right? But it's not about being able to cash it out. I'll get to what it's about here in a bit. What if I die, Charlie? What does my beneficiary get? They get your $200,000 plus whatever the annuity has grown to, period. So it's not a use it or lose it thing. Okay, but we're talking about long-term care. What does that $200,000 do for me? It turns to $600,000. And then the insurance company says, yeah, $600,000, you can take that out over a 72-month period of time. What does that mean? If you divide 600,000 by 72 months, that means that your monthly benefit, your maximum monthly benefit for long-term care is $8,333 per month. If you don't use it, it goes to the beneficiary, whatever that 200,000 has grown to. If you do use it, you have a pool of $600,000. Frankly, that is my favorite of the long-term care options, but there's a barrier to entry there, right? And what's that barrier to entry? Not everybody has 100,000, or forget 100,000, 50,000. It doesn't have to be 100, doesn't have to be 200, but not everybody has that laying around. But if you do, that's an efficient way of using it. You've multiplied it immediately for purposes of long-term care. And the underwriting process is very little. All right, I'm going to spend 5 minutes on this to give you some tidbits. Then the evaluation's going to come up and we're done here. So I'm 8 minutes late here. I was a little more verbose than what I thought I would be. So here is the process of probate. This is the process of judges and attorneys. Once you pass away, those probate assets. Let me ask you a question here, folks. Is life insurance to where your beneficiary, where there's a beneficiary, that's your son, is that a probate asset? Is that a probate asset, folks? Life insurance with a beneficiary on it, is that a probate asset? Slide needs to be bigger. Yeah, did the slide just minimize on y'all? Because I saw it kind of flick on my side. It did something weird. Okay, I'm going to unshare it and then I'm going to share it. Can you guys hear me okay? Can everybody hear me okay? We just had some weird event take place. Slide looks good. I'm going to reshare it here and boom. All right, does that look fine with everybody? All right, slide looks fine here. And you can make the slide bigger. So if it's on your side, there's usually a maximization thing here. Life insurance is not a probate asset if there is a named beneficiary. That life insurance policy doesn't get frozen upon your death. It doesn't go through this process of judges and attorneys saying, okay, who rightfully gets their share? because there's a beneficiary. The process of probate is creditor protection. Think of this. What if I died? I had all of these assets, but I also owed people a lot of money, this bank money, that bank money. And what if all my assets, there was no probate process? My sons can fight over the money, they take the money, and boom. I died owing all this money to all these people. My sons got the assets. They just walked away, and that's the process. Somewhere along the line, somebody realized, you know what? We need to freeze all of the probate assets. Why? Because nobody should get anything until the creditors are paid off. And then and only then do we, the attorneys and the judges, decide who gets what money. That's where the will comes into play, right? What did Charlie want? Where did he want his money to go? Rather than Seth and Matthew, Charlie's kids, fighting over the, literally wrestling. Okay, I want this asset. I'm going to fight you. And if I win, I get it. No, that's not how this works. Judges and attorneys determine how that is. And that can be a negative, right? That can be a negative. But I put in my will where I want my assets to go. Why isn't that enough to avoid this whole process? Well, because there has to be oversight. Judges and attorneys need to determine where that goes for those probate assets. Now, what are probate assets? That is property solely owned in the name of the deceased. So if I die, it's property that I own. So if I own it joint with rights of survivorship, like I do a lot of the stuff with my wife, there's no probate. It goes to her, period. She has rights of survivorship. And there is no beneficiary or a transfer on death. The state of Texas, I was just in Texas last week. Houses, real estate can have a transfer on death deed in the state of Texas. Automobiles in like a couple dozen states, you can have a TOD title, I guess you'd call it, on vehicles across the country. Here in Iowa, that vehicle goes through probate. The real estate goes through probate unless we have a revocable trust, which I'm going to talk about here in a bit. So that's probate property, property owned solely in the name of the deceased without a beneficiary or a TOD. A share of property owned as tenants in common. So I and a partner want to start a rental, a vacation home, let's say. I don't want to own it joint with rights of survivorship with him because I paid into that partnership, right? I want my family to inherit that should I die. Does that go through probate though? Yeah, because it's not like it's joint with rights of survivorship. So when I die, the judges and attorneys determine where my share goes to, which naturally would be my kids or my wife. She's going to outlive me. It should all go to my wife, right? By default, if no valid beneficiary is on file at the time of death. So this happened, and here's what it was. An annuity policy. An annuity policy which has a primary beneficiary and a contingent beneficiary. Boom, that should avoid probate, no problem, right? This person passed away that owned the annuity. It was going to go on to the primary beneficiary, but guess what? Whoever it was, the financial advisor that this primary beneficiary worked with, didn't get around to filing the death claim or anything, didn't get around to getting this primary beneficiary their money in time. So guess what happened? That person passed away, the primary beneficiary. And the question is, where does that money go then? Does it go to the contingent beneficiary? No, because that primary beneficiary actually outlived the owner. Guess where that annuity proceeds go? Through the probate process. Because heck, it was his money. It was his money, but there is no beneficiary on this beneficiary. So we're beneficiary updates, it's so important. Many of you have outdated beneficiary designations on life insurance, all that stuff. That is so important. So sometimes even when there is a beneficiary, it can go through probate. If I have a life insurance policy and I put, hey, estate, I want all of my money to go to my estate, it's going to go through probate. Anything having to do with the estate, judges and attorneys. Now, what is a probate process? Here's a probate process. Do wills avoid probate? We already answered that. No. What is ancillary probate? So if I own property in Florida, let's say, it's possible that not only do I get nailed in the state of Iowa, those judges, those attorneys, on how my Iowa property should be distributed, I also can get nailed in the state of Florida with how my house gets allocated down there. Just to use an example, heck, maybe in Florida they have a TOD deed, which bypasses the probate process, beneficiary basically. But that's ancillary probate. Dang, Charlie's estate's getting nailed here and he's getting nailed there. What is the probate process? Here in Iowa, you need an attorney. So I pass away. What does my wife need to do? She needs to hire an attorney because that's what's required. Attorneys cost money. Needs to file a petition for probate. That's going to the courthouse. Hey, let's open up Charlie's probate estate. This is my favorite one. Then a little notice goes out online in the newspaper, all that stuff saying, creditors, come and get Charlie's money. If he, so remember, this is the probate process, right? To protect creditors. Wells Fargo, hey, Charlie died. If he owes you money, you have 4 months in the state of Iowa to come and get all that money before the assets are distributed to the beneficiaries. You have 4 months. Other than that, the assets are going to the benefit. So now we're what, like 6 months into the process, probably 6 months. Your beneficiaries, your heirs are 6 months into the process. Asset and liability inventory. So in your will, you had indicated that you want somebody as the executor of your estate. And by the way, what if you don't have a will? Here's the definition of not having a will. For God's sake, at least have a will. And it's not just writing it out. No, you need witnesses. You need it notarized, all that stuff in most states. What if you don't have a will? Then that's what I call probate heavy. With a will is probate light. Without a will is probate heavy. Without a will, it is the laws of intestacy. Well, we know what Charlie probably wanted, but the laws of intestacy are he died. The state of Iowa says that his assets need to go to the wife. If the wife's not alive, goes to the kids. If the kids aren't alive, goes to the parents. So it's very rigid. It is very robotic. Dying without a will is called dying intestate, and that's probate heavy. Probate light is dying with a will. But in all cases, the executor, or if you die without a will, a court has to appoint an executor, which is technically the administrator, right? And those are the people that have to shuffle through your envelopes and stuff. Well, here it looks like dad owes this, looks like he has this asset, looks like he owes money on this. Now, all of this, so think of this, you have $1 million estate. Let's just say you have $1 million estate. Then we're going to get into the documents here, the 3 documents that you should talk with your financial professional about, because your financial professional has an attorney or attorneys that he can refer you to. And by the way, and I do a lot of Zoom calls with that financial professional and their clients where we can dive deep into this stuff if you like, but we'll talk about the documents. So all of this, people are like, but a revocable trust that can avoid all this, a revocable trust that can avoid all this, Charlie, that's going to cost me like $2,000. Well, for the person that has $1 million estate, right? $1 million estate. And by the way, revocable trust may not be for everybody. If every asset in your portfolio has a beneficiary or a TOD or what have you, then chances are it'll avoid probate without a trust. That's rare though. Man, Charlie, so a $2,000 trust, which I don't do. I'm not an attorney. I don't draft trusts myself. I direct people to my estate attorneys, my elder law attorneys that I have in my network. All right, so that $1 million person whose estate is going to pay $20,000 to $50,000 after their death is balking at a $2,000 trust, right? That can avoid all this. And that is my point. If not for the ease of your heirs, those that are going to inherit it, then certainly from a financial standpoint, you should consider what I'm talking about here. A revocable trust is just that. It's revocable. You own the assets, even though technically the trust owns the assets, but it's almost like it can be revoked. So you control all of those assets. It doesn't, not to get complicated, but you still have the stepped up cost basis when you pass away on securities in there. But what the revocable trust does is once you die, it turns into an irrevocable thing. Your assets don't get frozen up in the probate process. No, Those assets go directly to the beneficiaries of the trust, period. It's a beautiful thing. Unless you have a small estate. If you have a small estate that's going to avoid probate or have an expedited probate process, like we have in the state of Iowa for estates 100,000 and less, revocable trusts, it may not be for you, but probably for most people listening, it is for you. A will, if nothing else, folks, a will, right? Because that is the roadmap to give the judges and attorneys, but it does not avoid probate once again. Durable power of attorney, we talked about incapacitation. If you can no longer make decisions for yourself, who can? And it's durable because it will outlive your incapacity. I tell you, one of the big banks a client asked me to go to a while back because she needed to switch over a lot of those investments that her mother had to, she wanted to put her durable power of attorney on file. I'm telling you, those 25-year-old kids at those big banks, I wish I was 25, nothing against it, but they are not certified financial planners. They are not CLUs. They're not CHFCs. Many of them are not investment advisors. They're very green. The guy had no idea what a durable power of attorney was, didn't know that it was active right away. He said, but your mom's not incapacitated yet, right? So you don't have any power. That's when I had to step in and say, this is not what is called a springing power of attorney, which only kicks in when the person is incapacitated. This is effective right now, which means that this client of mine has the ability to act right now. Oh, I need to speak with our legal department. Spoke with them and said, yeah, you're right. If she were alone, she would have walked out hugely frustrated. The assets would be in limbo, et cetera, et cetera. And the pour over will. So here of these are the three most important documents for most people. For most people, the revocable trust that avoids all of this probate stuff. The durable power of attorney should you become incapacitated, and the pour over will. I'll finish with this story, then we'll bring up the evaluation. What is a pour over will? So let's say I'm going down to the Lake of the Ozarks, my favorite place to vacation with the family. And I think I have everything squared away, my revocable trust, all this stuff, durable power of attorney, advanced medical directives that tell my doctors about how I want my end-of-life treatment to be, my living will, all that stuff. I'm all squared away. I go into along I-35, I go into one of those convenience stores to buy water, whatever, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to buy a lottery ticket. I haven't bought a lottery ticket in 20 years. I buy a lottery ticket. And as I'm walking out of the building, that guy with his big, giant Cummins turbo diesel Dodge Ram, smoke bellowing out of it. Of course, he has all the stickers in the back of the window, the Punisher sticker and stuff, smoke bellowing. He's coming around the corner, plows over me. I'm dead. Boom. I'm dead. I have a lottery ticket in my pocket that my wife later learned is worth $500 million, worth $500 million. What happens with the estate process with that lottery ticket? It's worth $500 million. Was it in my trust that I set up? Was that $500 million in my trust? No. Is there a beneficiary on it? No. Where does that go? What I just explained is the power of a pour over. Now, not just that extreme example, but maybe you forget something outside of the trust. Here's what a pour over will is. A pour over will says, hey, anything that is outside of the trust, there's a revocable trust over here. And although this part is going to go through probate, judges and attorneys, we just want to notify you that these assets should ultimately be distributed the same way that the revocable trust assets are to be distributed. Still has to go through probate, but that is at least a roadmap for what happens to Charlie's $500 million. Folks, I went way over. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of this. In the evaluation, like I said, you can tell us if you want your financial professional to contact you, to meet with them, to talk about this wonderful stuff. It's too important not to. But I appreciate all of your time, and I look forward to possibly talking with you sometime down the road. Have a good evening, everybody. Here comes the evaluation.